Hi there, welcome to Git Good. Let's get you started with a cornerstone of the hobby, your brush. Before we dive into the video, if you like this content and would like to see more, be sure to give us a subscribe and let us know what content you'd like to see in future down in the comments. Let's start with the very foundation of all painting techniques, how you hold your brush. Now it's worth saying from the very start that this is going to be slightly personal and different people will hold their brush in different ways. However, the very best starting point is typically how you would hold a pencil, resting the brush between your thumb and index finger, using your middle finger to stabilize it. Some people also use their ring finger to add a further degree of stabilization. Where you hold the brush is also going to be one of preference. I personally like holding it just before the metal edge of the brush to give me maximum control, but some people do hold it further away and some hold it closer. When holding the brush like a pencil, you can also use your little finger to rest on the model to allow you to have better control over where your paint is going. So you're holding a brush. Now where do you hold your hands? It's important that you have a steady surface on which to rest your arms, with most painters typically having their elbows or forearms rested on a table. For your hands, a good starting point is to rest the lower section of your palms together, with one hand holding the model and one holding the brush. You can see here that I'm using a painting handle. This isn't required, but this one lets me hold the model in many different angles comfortably. You may have noticed that I'm wearing gloves. Some painters use gloves to prevent natural oils from the hands from transferring onto the miniature. If you're going to be handling the model at all, I'd recommend wearing them, and a cheap pair of nitrile gloves will serve you well. To load the brush, dip the tip of your brush into the paint, not allowing it to soak up to the join where the bristles meet the metal, known as the ferrule. This keeps your brush healthy for longer. You'll have heard this from 1,000 different painting tutorials, and to be perfectly honest, how you care for your brushes is entirely up to you. You may be happy needing to buy a new brush every few months just to ensure that your paintbrush is soaked and fully loaded up with paint. And if that's you, that's okay. Okay, our brush is loaded with paint. Now we need to get it ready before we even touch the model. Because if you put paint on a model now, you'll make me sad. To do this, we need to wipe off the excess paint. I personally like using kitchen roll for this, but you may prefer to use something absorbent like a microfiber cloth. Simply place your brush tip against the kitchen roll and rotate it as you drag it along. This will both remove the excess paint and reshape the tip of the brush. It is critical that the majority of paint is wiped off, otherwise you won't have control of where your paint goes. Okay, so you're ready to paint. Do you just scribble the paint on? Well, some people do, but when you're first starting out, it's best to focus on very deliberate brush strokes that follow the shapes of the model. For example, when painting a long flowing robe, you would apply paint from the bottom to the top, not from side to side. The first stroke is a lined stroke, painting the brush towards you to create a very controlled small line. Worth noting here that where you end the brush stroke, you'll deposit the most paint. The next common stroke would be a side-to-side motion, where you use the broad area of the brush to deposit a larger area of paint. This is generally better for blending, though much like with a line stroke, the majority of paint will deposit where you end the stroke. There is also stippling. This is where you use the tip of the brush to apply very small dots of paint, and this is perfect for creating texture or intricate patterns, but is very time consuming, though often rewarding. The brush strokes you use are going to be personal, and you'll probably develop some that are unique to you as you go along your painting journey. The important thing is that you know what you're doing and you know why you're doing it. The best guidance for people starting out is just follow those shapes of the model and apply your paint deliberately, not trying to rush the process. Finally, unloading the brush is just as important as loading it. When you get to the point where your paintbrush is no longer transferring as much paint as you'd like, stop and rinse the brush off in your pot of water. This also stops paint drying on the brush, which will lead to unfortunate texture or lowering your control when you try to paint. By mastering these techniques, you'll gain confidence and control, allowing your creativity to flourish in this world of miniature painting. Brush control takes time to develop, but is probably one of the most rewarding parts of learning the hobby, seeing how each model improves your brush control and ultimately makes you a better painter. I hope you've enjoyed this getting started video. Remember, get painting and get good.